Bienvenue, mes amis. Welcome to another truly exciting adventure in French. And today I want to talk to you about French adjectives. Now, my time limit here is 15 minutes, and I hope I can fit all of this in 15 minutes, because it's not really an easy thing to talk about French adjectives. They're just a little bit more complicated than their English counterparts. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, simply, in English, we just have one form of the adjective. For example, take the adjective blue. Well, if I wanted to say the blue house, I would just say the blue house. There I'm using the adjective with the singular noun, and I say blue. Well, what happens if the noun is plural? Do I make my adjective plural? Do I say the blues houses? No. I just use the same form of the adjective, and I make the noun plural. So I say the blue houses. So there's just one form I have to worry about. In French, it's not that way at all. French adjectives differ in two very important ways from English adjectives. First of all, French adjectives must agree with their nouns. What does that mean? Well, in French, an adjective, by changing its ending, can indicate that it goes with a masculine singular noun or a feminine singular noun, or that it goes with a masculine plural noun, or that it goes with a feminine plural noun. In other words, in French, one adjective can actually have four different forms: a masculine singular form, a feminine singular form, a masculine plural form, a feminine plural form. And the endings for that adjective will change to indicate which form or which noun it is modifying. Kind of complicated, isn't it? Well, think of it like this. It's like I said with the adjective blue in English. If I wanted to make the adjective agree with my plural noun, just like I added an S to the noun to make it plural, why, I could add an S to the adjective to make the adjective plural. It's that same kind of thinking. All right? And we'll get into more of that in just a moment. But let me tell you the other way that French adjectives differ from English adjectives. And that is that they follow the noun. That's right. In English, we always place our adjectives before the noun. In French, it's the opposite. The adjective goes after the noun. So using blue house again as my example. In English, we say blue house. In French, it would be like saying house blue. Okay? And that just sounds right to them, just like putting it in front of the noun sounds right to us. All right. Let's go back to this idea of agreement. Okay. Let me give you a French adjective. The one I like, well, hey, we can use the adjective blue. In French, that's bleu. Oh, and look, I've even made it blue. How wonderful of me. Okay. This is the masculine singular form of the adjective, bleu. B-L-E-U. Okay? And that would go with any masculine singular noun. All right? Like if I wanted to say, the blue computer, I would just say, l'ordinateur bleu. The blue computer. All right? Well, if I'm talking about a feminine singular noun, in French, I have to change it. And I do that by adding an E to the masculine singular. So the feminine singular form is bleu. Now, it sounds the same as the masculine form. It doesn't change the pronunciation. All right? It's pronounced bleu, but you'll notice it's got an E on the end of it. I'm going to use this form of the adjective, the feminine form, whenever I have a feminine singular noun. Let's try that. Let's say, car. Let's say I want to say the blue car. La voiture bleue. Notice this time I've used an adjective with an E on the end of it, the feminine form. Okay, because car is feminine. So I have to say la voiture bleue and spell it with an extra E. Because my adjective has to agree in gender, that is masculine or feminine, and in number, singular or plural, with the noun that it's modifying. All right? So let me put that other example up there, back up there. L'ordinateur bleu. Okay. Masculine singular, feminine singular. All right? Well, that's fine for singular. What happens in the plural? Well, normally, French adjectives will take on their plural form by simply adding an S to the singular form. So it's much like you do with a noun. You add S to make it plural. So the masculine plural form will be B-L-E-U-S, again pronounced bleu. And the feminine form will be the feminine singular form, B-L-E-U-E, with an S. So, now if I want to say the blue computers, I would say les ordinateurs. Notice my noun is masculine. I've used les for the definite article. I've added an S, and now my adjective, bleu, is going to match that. B-L-E-U-S. It's masculine plural because my noun is masculine plural. All right? What if I want to say the blue cars? Les voitures. All right? Blue, B-L-E-U-E-S, because again, it's plural. All right? Les voitures bleues. All right. Very, very different from what we do in English, correct? So you have to think a little bit more about adjectives as you use them. All right? Have to make sure that you're using the correct form of the adjective for the correct form of the noun. Okay? Now look what's going to happen sometimes. Say I use a different adjective such as marrant. Marrant means funny. Okay, so there's my masculine singular form. I'm just going to add an E to the masculine singular to make my feminine. Marrant. All right. I'm going to add an S now to make my plural forms. There's the masculine singular to make the masculine plural. I'm just going to add an S. Okay. Here's my feminine singular, and I'm going to add an S to make it feminine plural. But look what happens. Here I have marrant, but look what happens when I add that E. Normally, final consonants are silent, but once a final consonant is followed by an E, that E gives me permission to pronounce that consonant that was silent. So we go from marrant to the feminine form, marrante. So this time there's actually a difference in pronunciation. In masculine singular, I won't hear that T. In feminine, I will. Marrant, marrante. The masculine plural, again, I've got these final consonants, but we don't normally pronounce final consonants in French, so it's simply going to be marrant. But now that I have this E here in the feminine, I'm going to pronounce that plural, marrante. So we have marrant, marrant, but in the feminine, marrante, marrante. So I am going to get to pronounce that final consonant. All right. Now, I said that adjectives form the feminine by adding an E to the masculine. And for most French adjectives, that's true. However, it's not the only way they do it. All right? So let me show you some of the other ways that they form adjectives in French. We've already said that you can add an E, so let's put add E. There's another way, though. If the masculine singular of the adjective ends in EUX, you're going to form the plural. You're going to form the feminine by changing that EUX to EUSE. Let me give you an example. Whoops. I think I need to make that a little bit more prettier, don't you? All right, let's see. Yeah, that's a nice font. We'll do that one. Okay. Better. All right. The adjective paresseux. All right. It means lazy. Notice that it ends in EUX in the masculine singular. All right. In the feminine, you're not going to add an E because when they end in this EUX, you're going to form the feminine by adding EUSE. Paresseux, paresseuse. And then, of course, your plural. Paresseux in the masculine because you can't add an S because remember, when you're working with nouns, if a noun ends in an X, when you make it plural, you leave it alone. You don't add an S to the plural. All right, it's the same thing with our adjectives. In other words, the adjectives are going to follow the same spelling rules as the nouns do. All right, so we've got paresseux, paresseux, paresseuse, and I'm going to form my plural by simply adding an S. All right. Another way they do it is by changing an IF to an IVE. So we've got an example of that. Actif, masculine singular. Active, feminine singular. Actif for the plural in the masculine, and active for the plural in the feminine. All right. Another way we can do this is if an adjective ends in EAU, we're going to form the feminine by changing that to ELLE. An example would be the adjective beau, which means beautiful. I'm going to form the feminine by changing that EAU to ELLE, and the feminine now is belle. Okay, likewise my plural. Notice I added an X because remember, when you're working with nouns, if a noun ends in EAU, you form the plural by adding an X, not an S. So just like the nouns, we're going to follow the same spelling rules with our adjectives. And of course, the feminine plural form would simply be belle with an S. Okay? Another way you can do that is you have what we call separate forms. And these are adjectives whose masculine and feminine forms are separate. In other words, you can't just easily change something to make the feminine. Let me give you an example. The adjective for good is bon. Now, we're not just going to add an E onto that to make the feminine. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. The feminine form is bonne. Bon, bonne. Our plurals, we're just simply going to add an S. Bon for the masculine, bonne for the feminine. But these are adjectives, as you see, that have separate forms. All right? In addition to that, we have single form adjectives. And these are adjectives where the masculine and the feminine singular forms are the same. So, let me use the example of jeune, which means young. In this case, it's going to be jeune for the feminine. This is one of those adjectives where the masculine and feminine singular are the same. And so consequently, their plurals will be the same too. Jeune and jeune. Okay. Well, I can see my time is almost up. I've got about 30 seconds left. But that's what we do with adjectives in French. Remember, they normally go after the noun, and they must agree in gender and number with the nouns they modify. And we show that agreement by changing the endings. All right? Well, that's our adventure in French. That's learning about adjectives. See you soon. Au revoir, mes amis.